Lesson 3.3, subtract integers. To subtract an integer, we're going to add its additive inverse. So again, our negative sign tells us to do the opposite of what we are already doing to it. So example A, we have 6 minus 12. So we have 6 positives, so we're going to subtract 12 positives from it. Well, we don't have enough. So again, our subtraction sign tells us to do the opposite. Since it's a positive 12, we're going to make it a negative 12. So now we have 6 plus negative 12. 6 positives, 12 negatives. We combine them, make 0 pairs. We have 6 negatives left. Example B, we have negative 20 minus 15. So again, we have 20 negatives. We're going to subtract 15 positives. We can't subtract positives from negatives, so we need the opposite of it. So since we have positive 15, we're going to change that to a negative 15 and add an addition sign. So now we have negative 20 plus negative 15. We have 20 negatives, and we're going to add 15 more negatives to our pile. So now we have 35 negatives. Same thing with letter C. We have negative 22 minus 26. So again, we can't take positives away from negatives. So since this is positive 26, we can make it a negative 26. And 22 negatives plus 26 more negatives is negative 48. Okay, if we look at example D here, we have 4 minus negative 12. Now, whenever you see double negative, so minus a negative, that's always a positive. Double negatives are always positive. So right away, I make these addition signs. So now I have 4 plus 12, and 4 positives plus 12 positives is 16 positives. Letter E, we have negative 15 minus a negative 5. So again, I have a double negative minus the negative. Double negative is always a positive. Now I have 15 negatives. I'm going to put 5 positives on the pile. I make my 0 pair. What do I have left? I have 10 negatives. Letter F, we have 18 minus negative 6. Again, we have minus a negative. Double negative is always a positive. So 18 plus 6 is 24. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is evaluate. So we're going to evaluate each expression if A equals 5, B equals negative 8, and C equals negative 9. To evaluate, we substitute that value in for the variable. So we're replacing it. So letter G, we have B minus 10. So I need to figure out, what did they tell us B was? Well, B was negative 8. So now I have negative 8 minus 10. So I have negative 8 pieces. I have 10 positives. I can't subtract negative from positives. So subtraction tells us to do the opposite. So since I have a positive 10, I'm going to make it a negative 10. That becomes an addition sign. So we have 8 negatives and 10 negatives is 18 negatives. Letter H, we have A minus B. Again, I need to figure out what did they tell us A and B is and substitute those values in. Well, A they said was 5 minus B, which is negative 8. So now I have 5 minus a negative. Again, minus a negative we know right away is a positive. So then we have 5 plus 8, which is 13. And letter C, we have, or letter I, sorry, we have C minus A. So again, I go and find my values. What did those variables represent? Well, C is negative 9 minus A, which is 5. So now I have negative 9 minus 5. I'm trying to take 5 positives away from 9 negatives. That can't happen, so we're going to do the opposite of it. So we make this addition. So since this was positive 5, it now becomes negative 5. So we have negative 9 plus negative 5, which is negative 14. Okay, and a story problem. Brenda had a balance of negative $52 in her account. The bank charged her a fee of $10 for having a negative balance. What is her new balance? Okay, so again, when we're working with word problems, we need to pick out what's important to us. What do we need to know? Well, she had a balance of negative $52 in her account, and she was charged $10 for having that negative balance. And I want to know, what is her new balance? Okay, so she started with negative $52, and then she's charged $10, so we got to take another $10 away. So again, when we subtract, our subtraction sign tells us to do the opposite. So since this is a positive 10 right now, we got to make it a negative 10. So we have negative 52 plus negative 10, which is negative 62. So she has a balance of negative $62.